Welcome to today's devotional message from Trusting God Always. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still, silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's begin, and let His Word breathe new life into yours. You sit by the window, the light outside fading, mirroring the feeling in your soul. Another day ends, and the prayer you've breathed 1,000 times remains unanswered. The world outside blurs into soft colors as the day yields to evening. Yet inside, the sharp edges of disappointment cut deep. You check your phone, hoping for a sign, an email, a call, anything to break the heavy silence that feels like a blanket pressing down on your spirit. This waiting, it's not just passive, it's an active ache, a raw wound of hope deferred. It's the quiet scream of a heart that feels perpetually on hold. Maybe you felt this too? This profound aloneness in a season where it feels like God has simply gone quiet. The world rushes on outside your window, people moving, lives unfolding, answers arriving for others. They navigate their journeys, their ships sailing into harbor, while yours feels becalmed in an endless, silent sea. But for you, just the stillness, the unanswered questions, the growing fear that perhaps your faith wasn't strong enough, your prayer wasn't perfect enough, or maybe, just maybe, God simply isn't hearing you anymore. It's a vulnerable place, isn't it? To stand before the God of the universe, lay bare your deepest longings, and be met with nothing you can see or feel immediately. The silence isn't empty space. It feels like a wall, a thick, insurmountable barrier between you and the promise, between you and the breakthrough, between you and the very presence of the one you trust above all else. The silence feels like rejection, like a locked door in the face of your most desperate plea. Fear whispers its insidious doubts. Are you forgotten? Does He care? Is this waiting a punishment? But what if this perceived silence isn't abandonment? What if the waiting isn't a void, but a sacred space? A space where God is doing a work you cannot yet perceive with your physical eyes, a work deeper than the answer you're waiting for. Sometimes the deepest quiet is the loudest call from God, summoning you closer, not to a solution, but to Himself. This message is for the weary heart in the waiting room of life. It's for the one who feels unseen, unheard, and is questioning if faith truly works when the heavens feel like brass. Lean in, beloved. God is not absent. He is not indifferent. He is not idle. The silence isn't the end of the story. It might just be the turning of the page to a chapter where your roots grow deepest, anchoring you to the truth of His nature when the surface feels turbulent. It's where your trust becomes unshakable, not because you see the way forward, but because you know the one who holds your hand in the way. It's where you discover the profound reality of His presence, not just in the answers, but in the holy, often uncomfortable process of waiting. This is a message about finding God's unwavering presence, not just in the breakthrough, but in the silence, in the waiting, in the very heart of your struggle. Waiting feels like emptiness, but it's where filling often begins. You are seen, you are heard, you are not forgotten. God is working in the unseen, preparing you and preparing the answer. Trust the process, not just the outcome. You walk the familiar path to the mailbox, Each step a quiet prayer. In your chest, a fragile spark of hope flickers. Maybe today is the day. The contract arrives. The test results bring good news. The answer you've been pleading for finally appears. Your heart holds its breath as your hand reaches for the cold metal latch. You pull open the small door, your fingers searching the empty space. Just bills, advertisements, junk mail. The familiar, crushing emptiness where your answer should be. The spark dims, flickers, and feels like it might extinguish entirely. A cold ache settles in its place, a heavy stone in your gut. This repeated cycle, the anticipation, the hopeful search, the stark reality of nothing, it's a quiet kind of erosion. It wears down not just your patience, but the very foundations of your spirit. It's the tangible, physical manifestation of that raw inner struggle, holding on to hope with bleeding fingers, only to face the hard ground of still waiting. This moment, standing there with the empty box, is a moment of profound human vulnerability. It's where faith meets the unyielding reality of unanswered prayer, where the rubber of devotion hits the road of delay. You are not weak for feeling this pain, this disappointment that feels like a physical blow. It is part of the journey, a necessary shadow in the landscape of faith. Acknowledge it. Feel it. Let the tears sting if they come. But in this moment, when the mailbox is empty and your heart feels like a desolate wilderness, whisper this truth. God's promises are not bound by earthly postal routes, email notifications, or the delivery schedules of this world. His timing is perfect, vast, and often operates on a heavenly clock that seems painstakingly, agonizingly slow to our small, impatient earthly hearts. The profound spiritual insight hidden within this waiting, it is exposing where our real trust lies. Is it in the method of delivery, the specific timing, the expected package, the clear sign? Or is it in the faithful deliverer himself? Here lies the gentle paradox. The emptiness of the box is meant to reveal the fullness of the one who holds all answers. When you feel this familiar, crushing disappointment rise, take a deep, ragged breath. It's okay to grieve the delay, to name the pain. With a strength that doesn't feel like your own, lift your eyes beyond the empty box. Look past the immediate disappointing reality. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord, echoes the ancient whisper in Psalm 27:14. He is not limited by earthly systems, by deadlines, by lack of postage. Your hope is not meant to rest on the package, but on the unchanging, trustworthy character of the one who promised it. The waiting is not a sign of his absence, but perhaps an invitation into a deeper presence you couldn't perceive if the answer had come exactly when and how you expected. It is in this waiting, in this empty space, that he asks you to shift your gaze from the gift to the giver. You scroll through the digital stream, a quiet evening settling around you. Or perhaps it's a coffee shop buzz, watching friends share their news. And there it is again, the gleaming ring on a smiling hand, the ultrasound photo blooming across a screen, the confident announcement of a promotion, a new house, a sudden unexpected breakthrough that seems to bypass all the struggle you've been living through. A knot tightens in your chest, your heart, tenderized by seasons of waiting, feels a sharp, unexpected pang. Why them? Why not me? It's a whispered question, barely audible above the digital congratulations or the warm laughter around you, but it echoes loudly in the quiet chambers of your soul. Comparison creeps in like a shadow, during these seasons of delay, a sly thief stealing the peace you fought so hard to maintain. It whispers insidious doubts. Are you overlooked? Is God's favor a limited resource, unevenly distributed? Did you do something wrong to be left behind? It makes you question the very goodness of God and His specific, intimate plan for your life. You see their harvest and wonder if your field will ever yield. The scene is universal. The ache of watching others receive the very things you are agonizingly waiting for feels isolating, even in a crowded room. But the spiritual insight cuts through the noise. Comparison is a thief of joy and a distorter of truth. It twists the beautiful tapestry of God's unique design for each life into a harsh, competitive race where only some can win. It tempts you to believe that God's boundless love and infinite resources are somehow depleted when He blesses someone else. But this is a lie woven from insecurity, not divine reality. God's love for you is not diminished by His love for them. His plan for your life is as unique as your fingerprint, meticulously crafted with a divine artistry only He possesses. His timing for them is precisely His timing for them, a part of their sacred journey. And His timing for you, it is also His perfect timing for you. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us. This verse isn't a dismissive platitude. It's a foundational truth etched into the very rhythm of creation. Life unfolds in seasons, each with its own purpose and pace. Your current season of waiting, though it feels like a stark, barren wilderness compared to the lush gardens you see others cultivating, is not a sign of being less favored. It may be a season of deep preparation, of roots growing strong in the unseen, for a blessing uniquely suited for the timing and the person God is shaping you to be. Sometimes, the greatest growth happens in the quiet, hidden soil. When comparison strikes, and the sting of seeing others receive threatens to unravel your faith, gently yet firmly shift your focus. Turn your gaze from their blessing back to your walk with Him. Tend to the garden of your own soul. Water the seeds of faith He has planted in you. Trust that the same God who is lavishly faithful to them, who orchestrates their breakthroughs and celebrates their joys, is intimately attentive, infinitely kind, and tirelessly working behind the scenes in your life too. His silence isn't absence. It might be the sound of Him carefully preparing the ground for your unique story to unfold. The quiet steals in like a thief, settling on the edges of your awareness, whispering the thought you've fought for so long. What if I just stop? What if I just give up on this thing I've been praying for, waiting for, hoping for? The weight of the unmet expectation feels like a heavy cloak, pulling you down into a deep weariness that chills the soul. You've poured out your heart, again and again, only to be met, or so it seems, with a profound, aching silence. The path you thought God called you to feels like a sheer cliff face now, impossible to climb. And there, at the bottom, lies the alternative, the soft, deceptively inviting path of giving up. It looks like relief, a release from the struggle, the disappointment, the endless, weary effort. But look closer. Feel the texture of that relief. Is it the peace that settles after a battle well fought and won in surrender? Or is it the hollow quiet of defeat, the acceptance that perhaps God wasn't going to come through after all? This internal battlefield is where the fear of giving up often takes root. It's not just about the prayer or the promise. It's about control. The fear that your effort, your striving, your timing is somehow essential to God fulfilling His purpose in your life. That if you let go, everything falls apart. You stand at this crossroads, the wind carrying echoes of past hopes and present exhaustion. This moment, this deep weariness, this urge to turn back, this is where God calls us to a different kind of surrender entirely. It's a profound spiritual insight, a gentle paradox whispered in the wilderness of our waiting. True surrender is not giving up on God's promise. It is actively giving over your control of the how and the when to His infinitely capable hands. It's the terrifying, freeing act of admitting, I can't orchestrate this, I can't time this, I can't force this into being. It's releasing the burden of steering the ship in a storm you didn't ask for, and placing the rudder in the hands of the one who stills the waves with a word. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. His ancient truth echoes across the centuries. And lean not on your own understanding. Don't lean on the weary logic that says giving up is the only way out of the pain of waiting. Don't lean on the exhausted mind that says your prayers must be unheard. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. This submission isn't passive resignation to fate. It is active reliance on a faithful Father. It's saying, with trembling voice perhaps, God, I don't see the next step, and honestly, I'm so tired, I can barely stand, but I trust You to guide my steps. I trust You to fulfill Your purposes, in Your way, in Your time. When the urge to give up stems from deep weariness, the call is not to muster more strength, but to surrender the weariness itself to Him. Lay the heavy cloak at His feet and ask for just enough strength to take the next faithful step He reveals, even if it's just breathing in His peace and breathing out the fear. You replay the moment in your mind. It sits there, a quiet memory framed in the chaos of your present reality. That flicker of peace you felt, specific and undeniable, like a gentle lamp lit within the dark room of your uncertainty. That inner knowing, a deep sense that God was indeed leading you down this very path, whispering a particular outcome into the soil of your hopeful heart. You held on to it then, clutched it like a precious stone found in the wilderness, a promise guiding you through the arid land of waiting. But the path has twisted. The waiting stretches on, a vast and empty plain before you. The lamp flickers now, threatened by the strong wind of circumstance. Doubt begins its slow, insidious work, eroding that memory, whispering cruel questions into the quiet space you once reserved for faith. Was that really God? The whisper hisses. Or was it just your own desperate desire speaking? Did you manufacture that peace? Did you misread the signs completely? This internal questioning, this replay and interrogation of past spiritual experiences can be one of the most destabilizing aspects of the journey. You feel adrift, the compass of your spiritual direction spinning wildly, unsure if you ever truly heard the Master's voice or if you were merely echoing your own wishes in the echo chamber of your soul. It is a lonely place, standing at the foot of a mountain you were sure God told you to climb, now wondering if you were meant to be on a different mountain altogether, or perhaps no mountain at all. But consider this. Doubt, while uncomfortable and piercing like a cold rain, is often less a sign that you were mistaken and more a sign that your faith is actively being stretched, refined in the furnace of delay. Think of the seeds planted. They must be buried, unseen, and face resistance from the soil before they push towards the light. The enemy loves these vulnerable moments. He thrives in the space where God's timeline differs from ours, planting seeds of doubt specifically about God's voice, His guidance, and His very faithfulness. He wants you to distrust the memory of the peace, to discard the anchor that held you fast when the initial storms raged. Yet, the foundation of our faith isn't just in a single impression, no matter how profound it felt. It is rooted immovably in the unchanging character of God Himself and the solid, unshakable truth of His written word. This is where the anchor truly holds, for no matter how many promises God has made, they are yes in Christ. 2 Corinthians 1:20. This truth is the quiet, constant hum beneath the frantic questions. God's promises, every single one, are secured in Jesus. They are not dependent on your perfect interpretation, but on His perfect faithfulness. While it is true that we, in our human longing, can sometimes misinterpret our own desires for God's voice, when that past impression aligns with Scripture, that grand, overarching narrative of God's heart, and is confirmed through wise counsel, or when that persistent inner peace, though tested, refuses to leave, then it is worth holding on to. Worth holding on to even when circumstances scream the opposite, even when the valley feels too deep, the path too long. When doubt whispers its corrosive questions, don't engage the doubt directly. Instead, go back. Go back to the unchanging Word. Immerse yourself in the character of the one who does not lie, who does not change, whose faithfulness is wider than the ocean, higher than the mountains. Ask God not necessarily to confirm the timeline, for He often works in seasons hidden from our view, but ask Him to confirm His truth in your life. Ask Him to gently remind you of His faithful guidance, past, present, and future. The peace may not return as a feeling, but trust can settle as a quiet knowing. He heard you then, and He hears you now. He stands under the vast, indifferent dome of the night sky. Not a young man, vibrant with possibility, but aged, weathered by seasons and sandstorms. Imagine Abraham, his eyes lifted upwards, tracing the distant, scattered diamonds of the universe. God's voice echoes in the memory. Your descendants will be as numerous as these stars. Then his gaze falls back to the empty expanse of his tent. No son from Sarah. The years haven't just passed. They've piled up, heavy and mocking. This isn't just a story from ancient scrolls. It's the ache of a patriarch wrestling with a promise that seems to dissolve like desert mist with each sunrise. You know this feeling, don't you? The heart counts the passing moments, the calendar pages turn, and the promised hope feels further away, not closer. Perhaps you've counted your own stars, the dreams, the prayers, the future you've held on to with white knuckles. And like Abraham, you look at the reality of your situation and see an empty tent where life should be blooming. The temptation becomes a quiet whisper, then a persistent voice. Help God out. Take matters into your own hands. Force the outcome. Abraham tried. He reasoned, he planned, he had Ishmael. A son, yes, but not the son of the promise, not the one born of divine impossibility. It's a mirror reflecting our own impatience, our frantic attempts to engineer the miracle when God seems too slow or too silent. We offer our own Ishmaels, human solutions to spiritual needs, shortcuts that ease the immediate pressure, but detour us from the divine path. The spiritual insight from Abraham's long season is a profound, soul-shaking truth. God's promises are not bound by your timeline or your perceived possibilities. He operates on a divine schedule, a cosmic clock you cannot see or control. Often, He will allow circumstances to become humanly impossible, a barren womb in old age, a closed door with no visible key, a wilderness stretching endlessly, before He moves. Why? So that when He acts, His power is utterly undeniable. It wasn't Abraham's strength that produced Isaac. It was God's sheer creative power breathing life into the impossible. The waiting wasn't a void. It was the fertile ground where Abraham's faith was tested, refined, and ultimately deepened. The scripture reminds us, by faith Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He reasoned that God could even raise the dead. Hebrews 11:17-19. His faith was honed, not in the receiving of the promise, but in the long waiting and the severe testing. This wasn't wasted time. It was the divine crucible where the roots of his trust in a covenant-keeping God grew deep enough to withstand even the command to sacrifice the promised son. When your waiting feels impossibly long, when the stars seem unreachable and your tent feels empty, remember Abraham. God's promises might seem delayed, but they are never denied. He is working on a divine scale, often in the hidden, impossible seasons, preparing something far greater than you can engineer or imagine within your current limitations. Your long season is not a sign of God's absence, but often the very space where He is doing His deepest, most miraculous work within you and for you. Quiet yourself. Look not at the empty tent, but trust the One who counts the stars. He stares at the rough-hewn walls, the dust motes dancing in the single shaft of light filtering from above. The vibrant colors of a beloved coat seem a lifetime away, a faded memory against the stark reality of this place. This is not the grand stage promised in youthful dreams, not the field of bowing sheaves, not the celestial bodies paying homage. This is silence, stone, and the slow march of days blending into years. This is the pit. Perhaps you know this feeling. You had dreams, promises whispered over your life, a sense of divine purpose stirring within. Then, without warning, the bottom dropped out. Betrayed, misunderstood, abandoned, you found yourself thrown into a pit by those closest to you, sold into circumstances you didn't choose, falsely accused and confined to a prison built by injustice. You feel stuck, forgotten, the vibrant vision replaced by the dull ache of delayed hope. Like Joseph, you wait. You see others rise, their dreams fulfilled, the cupbearer remembered, the baker condemned, while your own story seems paused, suspended in a holding pattern of uncertainty. You remember the favor, the anointing, the clear word God spoke, and wonder if it was all just a beautiful, cruel illusion. Was your faith misplaced? Has God forgotten you here in this darkness? But look closely at the story. The pit wasn't the end, it was a passage. The prison wasn't a dead end, it was a training ground. Joseph wasn't ready for the weight of ruling an empire when he was a spoiled, boastful boy. The stripping away of comfort, the forced humility, The lessons in dependence taught him what prosperity never could. In the isolation, he learned to lean not on privilege, but purely on the presence of God. Genesis 39:21 whispers the profound truth of this hidden season. The Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him, and gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. Even confined by stone and chains, God's favor was an unseen force, a constant companion. He wasn't just preparing a place for Joseph. He was preparing Joseph for the place. The deepest formation often happens in the darkest hiding places. The seed dies in the earth before it breaks through to the sun. The oil is pressed in darkness before it fuels the lamp. Your current struggle is not a detour from your destiny. It is part of the essential, divinely orchestrated training ground. The waiting is not wasted time. It is shaping time. God is with you in the pit, in the prison of your circumstance, extending kindness, granting favor, even in the most unlikely places. Trust His presence in the suffering, not just His power to deliver you from it. This season of being hidden is preparing you for the season of being revealed. Hold on to the quiet assurance that even here, His hand is upon you, refining you, shaping you, preparing you for the calling and breakthrough He has always purposed. Your current struggle is not a sign of His absence, but a testament to His purposeful, powerful presence, even in the waiting. The sand stretches endlessly before you, each grain a ticking second in a life that feels stuck. You stand, maybe not in a literal desert, but in a season that mirrors its vast, quiet emptiness. Your dreams, once vibrant and full of promise, seem to shimmer distantly, like a mirage, fading with each passing day. You look back at the potential, the training, the moments you felt destined for something significant. Perhaps you were schooled for palaces, prepared for leadership, groomed for influence. But now, you are tending sheep, metaphorically speaking, doing the quiet, mundane, overlooked tasks that feel miles away from the purpose you were so sure was yours. Was it all a mistake? Did you miss the turn? Is this quiet anonymity the unexpected, disappointing end of the story? This isn't just your story. It was Moses's. Trained in the courts of Egypt, steeped in worldly power and knowledge, he made a move, a misstep, and suddenly found himself on the run, a fugitive in the wilderness of Midian. For 40 years, 4 decades. He was not leading a nation, not confronting pharaohs, not wielding authority. He was shepherding Jethro's flocks. Imagine the internal landscape, the questions, the regrets, the slow erosion of self-importance, and the skills acquired in the corridors of power. The desert, often seen as a place of emptiness and lack, became Moses's reluctant schoolroom. God often uses these seasons of waiting, these periods of obscurity and mundane routine, to strip away the very things we rely on most: the self-reliance, the worldly wisdom, the impatience that demands immediate results. These are the weights God gently, persistently removes in the quiet crucible of the wilderness. You think you're just doing nothing, but God is doing everything. He is unlearning the world out of you and teaching you absolute dependence on Him. He is showing you what it truly means to lead, not with the strength of an army or the authority of a throne, but with divine guidance, with the power that flows only from surrender. Moses needed 40 years of tending sheep to learn what Egypt could never teach him. He needed to understand the quiet rhythms of nature, the vulnerability of a flock, the patience required for the long haul. He needed to be utterly dependent on the land, on simple provisions, on the stark reality of his own limitations. And it was there, precisely in that season that felt like the end of everything, that God appeared. Moses was shepherding the flock of Jethro when the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire. Exodus 3:1-2. 40 years of what looked like wasted time, yet God's timing was not late, it was perfect. He waited until Moses was humble, dependent, and ready to lead his way, not Egypt's way. If you find yourself in a season that feels like a desert, mundane, isolated, questioning your purpose, tending sheep instead of nations, trust that God is profoundly at work. This isn't wasted time. It is sacred training. He is using this quiet season to shape you, to teach you lessons you couldn't learn in the palace, and to prepare you for a future task that will require the very strength, patience, and dependence learned only in this wilderness school. Lean into the quiet. Let God unlearn the world from you. Know that He sees you, He is with you, and the call often comes not in the fanfare of your expectations, but in the stillness of His perfect timing. Your desert season is not a detour, it's the path. You sit in the silence, a quiet frustration churning beneath the surface. You've prayed, you've waited, you've watered the seed of a promise God placed in your heart, tending to it with faith and hopeful expectation. Yet day after day, you see nothing. No green shoot piercing the soil, no visible sign that anything is happening at all. It feels like stillness, perhaps even stagnation. The world rushes on around you. People's lives seem to bloom before your eyes, and you are left feeling buried, forgotten, watching an empty patch of earth where you expected a miracle. But step closer, peer beneath the surface, into the rich, dark soil where the real miracle is unfolding. The tiny seed, hidden from sight, is not passive. It is pushing down, extending fragile tendrils into the darkness. It is anchoring itself, seeking stability, establishing a vital foundation. This unseen, subterranean activity is not less important than the visible growth. It is more important. Without these deep, strong roots, the plant would never be able to support the weight of its future leaves, flowers, and fruit. It would be easily toppled by the first strong wind, uprooted by a sudden storm. This season of waiting, this time when you see no visible progress, is your root-growing season. God is not absent. He is working mightily in the unseen depths of your spirit, strengthening your character, deepening your resilience, building the sturdy foundation necessary to hold the weight of the blessings He has planned for you. The stillness you feel is not stagnation. It is God's protective work, preparing you to stand firm. He is ensuring that when your season of visible growth arrives, you will be anchored so securely in Him that no storm can shake you. Just as a tree requires deep roots to withstand the gales and bear abundant fruit, you require this hidden time of strengthening to fulfill the purposes God has for you. Remember the words, "So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in Him, rooted and built up in Him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness." Colossians 2:6-7. Your faith isn't being tested in the waiting to see if it will break, but to see if it will deepen. The pressure is refining. The darkness is grounding. When you feel most unseen, most buried in the waiting, trust that your roots are pushing down deeper into the inexhaustible source of life, Christ Himself. This foundation is everything. Your greatest growth is happening where you cannot see it. Let that truth sink into the hidden places of your heart. The heat presses in. It's not the gentle warmth of a fireplace, but the intense, inescapable blaze of a crucible. You feel exposed, raw, everything you thought was solid melting away, leaving you vulnerable. This is the refining fire, a season you didn't ask for, a wilderness you didn't choose. Yet here you are, held captive by its fierce temperature. You watch as parts of yourself, the things you relied on, maybe your strength, your plans, your comfortable routines, begin to bubble up, revealing hidden impurities. Impatience surfaces like dross on molten metal. A fierce need for control, clinging to the edges of the crucible. The insidious whispers of doubt, questioning if any good can possibly come from this searing process. These are the dross God is revealing, the parts that hinder the gold from shining through. Like the silversmith, God holds you in this fire, His gaze steady and precise. He knows the exact temperature needed, the perfect duration. He watches for His own reflection in the surface. The sign that purification is complete. This waiting, this season of intense pressure and pain, is His divine work of refinement. It is not punishment, but purposeful purification. He is burning away the dross that keeps you from reflecting Him clearly. He is stripping away the layers built on self-reliance, worldly comfort, and idols of control. This is painful. It feels like breaking, not building. Yet, even in this fiery trial, the ancient cry of Job echoes across centuries. But He knows the way that I take. When He has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Job, stripped bare, sitting in ashes, understood that God had a knowing purpose in the suffering, a refining end goal. This fire is revealing what needs to be purged. It's exposing the roots of fear, the ways you've leaned on fleeting comforts instead of His eternal promises. It's in this melting that you discover the strength you don't have, only to find the strength He does provide. It feels like loss, yet it is gaining pure substance. When the heat feels unbearable, when the waiting is a relentless ache, pause and ask the master silversmith, what are you revealing? What are you refining? Look for the impurities rising to the surface, the anger at delay, the anxiety over the unknown, the resentment towards the process itself. Don't shrink from the sight. Cooperate with His hand. Surrender the dross as it is revealed. It is in this surrender, this painful letting go, that the truest version of you, the one God created you to be, begins to emerge, shimmering with the purity of tested faith, ready to shine brighter than ever before. The fire doesn't destroy you, it prepares you. The clock ticks, but the day feels frozen, a mere placeholder before the real life begins, the life you're waiting for. You wake up, and the weight of that hoped-for future, or the dreaded uncertainty of it, settles over you like a shroud. Your mind races, rehearsing possibilities. The joyful arrival you yearn for, the painful door you fear might open instead. It's so tempting to live perpetually in that imagined tomorrow, to mentally inhabit a future that hasn't arrived, neglecting the only day you are actually given, today. This restless anticipation becomes a wilderness of the mind, wandering paths that don't yet exist, missing the quiet stream of God's presence right here, right now. The scene is the deep, often silent struggle to be present, to find contentment and purpose in the midst of waiting. It feels counterintuitive. Shouldn't you be actively preparing for the future? Planning? Strategizing? perhaps even striving to make the waiting end faster? But active waiting, in God's economy, doesn't mean putting your life on hold. It means choosing faithfulness, gratitude, and deep presence in the current season, however mundane or difficult it feels. It's about finding God's presence and His subtle unfolding purpose in the ordinary moments, the quiet sunrise, the simple meal, the conversation with a friend, the small task completed with diligence. Even when the extraordinary blessing or change you long for hasn't arrived. Remember Jesus' gentle reminder, nestled within His most famous sermon. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Matthew 6:34. But preceding that, He offered the profound key to unlocking presence and peace in the waiting. But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Matthew 6:33. This isn't a magic formula promising the waiting ends immediately when you start seeking Him harder. It's a divine promise that when you prioritize His kingdom and His way today, His character, His will, His heart for you and others in this moment, He promises to meet your needs and guide your life's unfolding according to His perfect, often hidden plan. When waiting makes you anxious about tomorrow, pulling your spirit away from the grace available right now, choose to anchor yourself in the present moment. It feels like a surrender, giving up the illusion of control over the future. But it's a holy surrender into the arms of the One who holds both today and tomorrow. Ask God, what is your will for me today? Where do you want me to see you? What quiet thing can I do that brings you glory, just for the next few hours? Peace isn't found in conquering tomorrow's fears, but in receiving today's grace. He provides daily bread, the sustenance you need for this day. He provides daily strength, enough to walk this path. He provides daily grace, washing over this moment. Choosing presence isn't ignoring the future. It's trusting the One who is already there, by walking faithfully with Him right where you are. Finding peace in today is the miracle. Finding strength in the stillness is the paradox. You feel it deep within you, that parched ache, the weary spirit that comes from seasons of prolonged waiting. It's as if the wellspring within has dried up, leaving your faith fragile, like cracked earth under a relentless sun. Doubts whisper on the dry breeze, multiplying with each passing day. The answer doesn't come. The breakthrough doesn't arrive. The promise remains unfulfilled. You find yourself fixated on the problem, the mountain ahead, the sheer impossibility of your circumstances. Every thought circles back to the thing you're waiting for, consuming your focus, draining your energy. The scene playing out in the quiet corners of your soul is one of profound weariness, of a deep, gnawing need for sustenance you can't seem to find anywhere in the visible world. Your hands reach out but grasp only air. Your eyes scan the horizon but see only the same unchanging landscape of waiting. This feeling isn't just physical fatigue. It's a spiritual depletion, a hunger that earthly food cannot satisfy, a thirst no amount of water can quench. Yet, woven into the fabric of God's truth is the reality that your spirit, like your body, requires daily nourishment. And that nourishment isn't found in frantic searching or anxious dwelling on the problem. It is found in the living, breathing Word of God. It is spiritual food and drink, essential for sustaining your faith and renewing your strength precisely during the wait, not just when it's over. It's not a magic pill to make the problem vanish, but it is the essential fuel to endure the wilderness journey with grace and hope. Think of it. When you were lost in the desert of waiting, God's word is the manna that falls fresh each morning, the rock from which water flows. It reminds you, moment by moment, of God's unchanging character, that He is faithful, just, loving, powerful, even when your circumstances feel anything but. It recounts stories of His past faithfulness to others, how He parted seas, brought water from rocks, fed thousands with a few loaves, raised the dead. These aren't just ancient tales. They are powerful testimonies woven into the divine narrative, shouting, "He did it then, He can do it now, and He will see you through." The word anchors you, reminding you that the one who was faithful to Abraham, Moses, David, and the disciples is the same one holding you in His hands today. It's a gentle paradox. You find the strength to carry on, not by summoning your own will, but by humbly receiving the nourishment God offers. You find abundance for your soul in the simple act of opening a book. Reading Scripture isn't just about gaining knowledge. It's about shifting your focus from your changing, often chaotic circumstances to the unchanging, stable truth of who He is. It's about letting His perspective become your perspective. Jesus Himself declared, in a moment of intense wilderness testing, "Man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Matthew 4:4. He knew, better than anyone, the absolute necessity of divine sustenance, especially when facing temptation, doubt, and the weight of the world. Just as your physical body signals hunger and thirst, demanding daily physical nourishment, your spirit signals weariness and dryness, desperately needing daily spiritual nourishment from the Word. Ignoring either leads to weakness and vulnerability. When the wait feels impossibly long, when your spirit is weary and heavy, there is a quiet call to immerse yourself in Scripture. Don't just read it. Let it soak into the dry places of your soul. Let the truth of His promises of presence, provision, peace, and eventual fulfillment, nourish your soul like a life-giving rain. Let the stories of His faithfulness to others breathe hope into your situation. Let the revelation of His character remind you that He is big enough, kind enough, and powerful enough to handle what you are facing. The Word doesn't erase the waves of uncertainty, but it becomes the anchor that holds you steady when they threaten to pull you under. It doesn't magically shorten the wait, but it provides the sustaining power to endure it with a quiet hope that transcends circumstances. It's a lifeline in the storm, a cool drink in the desert, the lamp for your feet when the path ahead is dark. It is the nourishment your weary soul craves, readily available, always sufficient. Open it today. Let Him feed you. You sit again in the same quiet space, the same words lifting from your lips, perhaps feeling worn thin, like a path walked too many times. You've petitioned, you've pleaded, you've laid out the aching need, the healing hoped for, the door you long to see open, the answer that feels perpetually delayed. And in the quiet, the fear whispers, "Are my prayers even being heard? Is God listening?" Your focus is sharp, laser-like, fixed on the thing you desperately want. The outcome that promises relief, joy, or resolution. And it is good, deeply good, to bring your requests before the Father who cares. He welcomes every burden, But in the vast, stretching landscape of waiting, sometimes the prayer journey shifts. The silence you perceive isn't always a lack of listening. Sometimes it's an invitation to move beyond the urgent plea for the gift and towards the wondrous reality of the giver. This season, this long pause where the requested answer hasn't arrived, might just be designed to draw you into a deeper current of communion, one that bypasses the immediate request to seek the very heart of the one you're praying to. The most transformative prayer in the wilderness of waiting isn't about getting the answer. It's about encountering the answerer, learning to find your true solace, your unwavering hope, and your unshakable identity, not in the fluctuating outcomes of your circumstances, but in the constant, unchanging presence of God Himself. Think of Psalm 16:11, a wellspring in this dry land. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand there are pleasures forevermore. It doesn't say, in getting what you want, there is fullness of joy. It says, in your presence there is fullness of joy. True life, boundless joy, and enduring pleasure are found in His presence, not merely in the fulfillment of our earthly desires. As valid as they are, when your prayers feel like they're circling the same mountain, repetitive and perhaps even ineffective because the desired answer hasn't materialized, try a gentle reorientation. Instead of just listing your needs, though continue to do that when your heart calls, spend time simply being with God. Step away from the doing of prayer and enter the being of presence. Adore Him for who He is, His faithfulness that spans generations, His power that spoke worlds into existence, His love that is fiercer than any storm. Thank Him for the ways He has been faithful in the past, for the mountains He has moved, for the hidden mercies you might have overlooked. Ask for more of Him, for more of His Spirit, more of His perspective, more of His peace that transcends understanding. This kind of prayer doesn't negate your request. It cradles it within the larger, more breathtaking reality of God's character and presence. It reorients your weary heart, anchoring your hope not in the shifting sands of your changing circumstances, but in the solid rock of His unchanging nature. It's the gentle paradox of finding freedom from the need by being fully present with the one who meets all needs, often in ways we never anticipated. The waiting isn't empty. It's full of the possibility of encountering the fullness of joy found only in His presence. The season stretches on, a wilderness floor beneath your feet, where the promised land feels impossibly far away. You've traced the same steps of prayer, worn grooves in the path of patience, yet the wait persists. And in the quiet ache of this prolonged holding pattern, a subtle shift occurs. The world begins to shrink. Your focus narrows, sharpens, until all you can see, all you can feel, is the raw edge of your own need. Your own unmet desire hangs heavy in the air. Your pain, a constant companion you can't shake. Your unanswered prayer echoes in the silence, deafening you to everything else. You become preoccupied, even consumed by your own sense of lack. It's natural, isn't it, to nurse your own wounds when the healing seems delayed, to protect your fragile hope when it feels threatened by time. But this self-focus, this intense concentration on the empty spaces within your own life, can blind you. It can make you miss the subtle, gentle opportunities God places right in front of you, chances to look outward, to extend a hand, to be a blessing to someone else, even when your own well feels dry and depleted. Imagine the paradox. serving when you feel you have nothing left to give, offering comfort when you crave it most, lifting others when you feel yourself sinking. This isn't just difficult. It's an act of radical faith, a counterintuitive spiritual discipline in the midst of waiting. It's choosing to believe that even in your own season of perceived emptiness, God's abundance is still flowing, and you can be a channel for it. Serving during a time of personal need wrenches the focus away from your own pressing concerns and gently reminds you that God's kingdom is vast. His work extends far beyond your personal breakthrough or specific prayer answer. It reminds you that His purposes are global, eternal, and you are part of a larger tapestry. Often, this outward focus brings an unexpected perspective, a surprising breath of fresh air into your constrained world. You might find comfort not by receiving it, but by offering it. Jesus, in His wisdom, spoke of a divine principle of generosity. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. Luke 6:38. While this verse often speaks of material giving, the spiritual principle holds true. When you give of yourself, your time, your dwindling energy, your listening ear, your fragile encouragement, even when the weight has left you feeling utterly depleted, God has a mysterious way of replenishing your own spirit. Serving others doesn't just bless them. It often reveals that you do have something precious to offer, even in the midst of your waiting. It reminds you that God is still working, not just in your life, but all around you, and that connection often lifts the veil of isolation the weight can cast. When the long season makes you feel self-absorbed, trapped, ask God today, who can I serve? Step out in that radical faith and bless another soul. You might just find your own spirit mysteriously lifted in the process. You sit in the quiet, the kind of quiet that feels less like peace and more like a vast, empty space where answers should be. You've been waiting for a sign, a clear directive, maybe even a boom from the heavens that signals the end of this long, still season. You've poured out your heart, articulated the deepest longings, the most urgent needs, and the silence has stretched, thick and heavy, making you wonder if your voice even carried past the ceiling. This is the wilderness of waiting, isn't it? A place where the loudest noise is often the echo of your own fears, the world's clamor, and the anxious chatter in your mind. How can you possibly hear the divine director over all that internal and external static? You strain your ears, looking for the dramatic, the undeniable, the parting of the clouds. But God, the master artist of the subtle, often chooses a different canvas. He isn't always in the earthquake, the fire, or the rushing wind. Often, He is in the still, small voice, the whisper, 1 Kings 19:11-12. He is the gentle nudge toward a truth you've read 100 times, but suddenly sees you. He is the quiet peace that settles over an impossible situation, the unbidden thought that guides your next small step, or the seemingly random encounter that holds a hidden message. You are waiting for the grand finale, but He is speaking in the prologue, the connecting scenes, the moments between the big acts. The spiritual insight here is profound. Learning to wait well isn't just about enduring. It's about learning to listen attentively within the waiting. It's actively discerning the quiet current of His guidance flowing beneath the surface of your stagnant circumstances. He may not reveal the destination yet, but He is always guiding your next footprint in the sand. Jesus says, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." John 10:27. This isn't a passive, one-time recognition. It's a description of an ongoing relationship, a deepening familiarity with his unique tone, his rhythm, his heart speaking to yours. During this waiting, when the answers feel absent, practice listening not for the thunder, but for the whisper. Quiet the frantic searching, still the anxious striving. Is there a Bible verse that keeps returning to your mind? A gentle insistence that feels like more than just memory? Is there a quiet, unexpected sense of peace about a small decision? A subtle urging to reach out to someone, to offer kindness, to take a tiny step of faith, even if you don't know the full path? These are often God's quiet promptings, his gentle hand guiding you through the wilderness, providing the small lamp for the next step rather than illuminating the entire mountain. When you feel utterly unheard, when the silence feels like abandonment, quiet your spirit deliberately. Breathe in trust, breathe out fear. Ask God, with a simple, open heart, to help you discern his voice amidst the noise. Acknowledge that you might have been listening for the wrong kind of sound. He is speaking, perhaps not in the way you expected, or even in the way you desperately hoped, but he is present, and he is communicating. The stillness isn't empty. It's often the quietest place where his softest words can finally reach you. Learning to hear him in the whisper transforms the waiting from a barren void into a sacred, listening space. It changes the fear of being unheard into the quiet assurance that he is closer than the silence suggests. You sit in the silence, wondering if your prayer was even heard. The wind taps the window like God's whisper waiting for your stillness. Remember the seasons that felt like endless plains, where the horizon remained stubbornly distant and the promise seemed to recede with each passing day. Perhaps it was the ache of waiting for a job to open, a healing to manifest, a relationship to mend, or a suffocating situation to finally resolve. You walked those days burdened, your hope a flickering lamp in the wilderness of uncertainty. Each sunrise brought the same view, the wait. You questioned, you doubted. Did God forget? Did he hear? Was this silence his answer, a gentle, painful no echoing through the barren landscape of your present? The fear whispers, "This time is lost. This delay is denial." Your prayers were wasted breath against a deaf heaven. But step back now, in the quiet of memory, and look at that past season through the wide-angle lens of time. The fog has lifted, hasn't it? What felt like a dead end back then reveals itself now as a necessary curve in the path, unseen at the time, but perfectly planned. That closed door? It wasn't a rejection. It was protection from a storm you couldn't weather. A wrong turn you didn't take only because you were held in place. The frustrating delay in your career wasn't stagnation. It was preparation, a crucial period where skills were honed, character was forged in the furnace of patience. Or perhaps a different opportunity, one far more aligned with your true purpose, was slowly being birthed in the hidden places. The unanswered prayer for a specific outcome wasn't God ignoring you. It was him aligning circumstances, weaving a divine tapestry so intricate, so vast, that your limited view couldn't possibly grasp its beauty or necessity in that moment. He was moving pieces, orchestrating events, not according to your rushed timeline, but according to a perfect, eternal design that factored in everything. This looking back, this sudden clarity granted by the passage of time, unveils a profound spiritual insight. God's delays are rarely, if ever, denials. They are divine appointments. They are necessary pauses with profound purpose. The waiting wasn't wasted time, marking empty days on a calendar. It was essential, formative time, shaping you, protecting you, preparing the ground, softening the soil, watering the seed before the necessary season for growth could arrive. It felt like being forgotten in the wilderness, but you were being led, fed, and taught to trust the one who knew the path home, even if you couldn't see the next step. The season of feeling pruned back, cut down to the root, wasn't destruction. It was preparation for abundant fruitfulness you weren't yet strong enough to bear. Sometimes, the greatest strength is found not in moving forward, but in standing still when God commands the pause. It is a paradox. You feel most powerless when waiting, yet it is in that very surrender that God's power is most profoundly at work, unseen, underground, preparing the breakthrough. This perspective is not just a nostalgic reflection. It is an anchor for your soul in the present season of waiting. It is rooted in the bedrock truth of Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. This is not a trite saying to dismiss your pain. It is a powerful, unwavering promise that assures us that all things, every unexpected detour, every frustrating delay, every painful season of confusion and waiting, are actively being worked together by God for your ultimate good and for His greater glory. When you are in the midst of waiting, surrounded by the fog, it is incredibly hard to see the why. Doubt creeps in like a chilling mist, blurring the promise. But trusting Romans 8:28 means choosing to believe, even when your heart aches and your mind rebels, that even this difficult season, this long, arduous pause, has a profound and loving purpose in God's perfect plan for you. It is a chapter, perhaps the most challenging one you've read so far. But it is not the end of the story. When the wait feels meaningless, when the days blend into a monotonous landscape of stagnation, cling to the truth that God is purposeful in everything. He is not idle. He is not ignoring you. He is weaving a story, and this season of waiting is an essential, albeit challenging chapter. It is a chapter of deep formation, of learning reliance not on your strength or speed, but on His unwavering faithfulness. It is a chapter leading, inevitably, to something beautiful and good, something aligned with His perfect design, something you might not have been ready for had you rushed ahead. The wilderness prepared Moses. The prison prepared Joseph. The cave prepared David. The tomb prepared Christ's resurrection. Your pause is not emptiness. It is sacred space where God is working, quietly, powerfully, preparing you and preparing the way ahead. Trust the author, even when you can't see the next page. His pauses have purpose, and His story for you is good. You've walked through the valley of waiting. You've felt the sting of silence, the ache of disappointment that settles deep in your bones, the relentless wrestle with doubt that tries to convince you God isn't listening, or worse, doesn't care. You look around and see others receiving their answers, their breakthroughs, their promises fulfilled, while you stand in the stillness, feeling unseen, perhaps even forgotten. This quiet struggle, this persistent hope clinging to a whispered prayer, this is the landscape of your current season. But through it all, if you lean in close, you might be learning something profound about God's presence and His character. You are discovering, in the stark reality of the unanswered prayer, that his faithfulness isn't measured by the speed of his answers, the sudden mountain moved, or the immediate storm calmed, but by the depth of his presence in the waiting. He is Emmanuel, God with us, not just God who answers us. You've seen, perhaps just in glimpses, how the wait itself has changed you. The edges of impatience have softened. The roots of self-reliance have been exposed. The quiet strength you never knew you possessed has begun to surface. The silence hasn't broken you. It has refined you, prepared you for something you couldn't have handled before. And slowly, subtly, a quiet peace settles over your spirit. It's a calm born not of having the answer, but of trusting the one who holds the answer and the timeline. It's a peace that surpasses understanding, a treasure found in the crucible. This brings you back to the anchor, God's perfect timing and unwavering faithfulness. You are not forgotten. Your prayers are not unheard. They are held in His hands like fragrant incense. God is working, always working, moving pieces you cannot see, orchestrating moments you couldn't orchestrate yourself, even when you cannot see or feel a single shift. His timing is not a reflection of your worthiness or the strength of your faith. You couldn't earn it if you tried. His timing is a reflection of His infinite wisdom and His perfect, boundless love for you. He sees the full tapestry, the beginning and the end, the seen and the unseen. Remember this truth when the doubt whispers. He who promised is faithful. Hebrews 10:23. He cannot lie. He will fulfill His word, not a moment too early, not a moment too late, but in the fullness of time He has ordained. This is why you need to persevere, to keep your hand to the plow, not just toughing it out, but continuing to do the will of God, seeking Him, trusting Him, serving Him, while you wait. That is the active nature of perseverance, the doing of His will in the middle of the unknown. Rest now, beloved one. Rest in the absolute certainty that the one who began a good work in you, this work of faith, this journey of trust, will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6. Your story is still being written, not by circumstance, not by your own striving, but by the master author. Even in the silence, perhaps especially in the silence, His presence sings over you, a gentle lullaby of peace, reminding you that you are held, you are loved, and His perfect timing will unfold exactly as it should. The wait is not the end of your story. It is the fertile ground where faith blooms most beautifully, hidden from sight, but growing strong in the quiet darkness, ready for its season to blossom in His perfect light.